Want to let you know this webinar is being recorded, and we'll post the recording on LinkedIn and on networksgroup.com. I'll also remind you that there is a Q&A box on your screen where you can add questions, and we'll tackle them at the end unless I see something along the way that's particularly pertinent as we go. I reserve the right to stop and answer them along the way as practical. So hi, I'm Dave. I've worked with the Networks Group team for about 15 years. I joined the team about 8 years ago. I took on the president role just before the pandemic hit. On a personal note, when I'm not thinking about cybersecurity, I'm usually out running or working in my wood shop, but still thinking a little bit about cybersecurity. I've got 2 daughters in the Michigan marching band. So most days you'll see me in maize and blue. I've recently taken on a new cat from a family member that is living in my office here with me. We call him Bob because I'm convinced he's at least half bobcat. So you may see Bob wandering around at some point, and I'll ask him to say hello if he does. So, Michael.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Michael Cross. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at Networks Group. I'm relatively new to the team. I joined the organization in March, but I've known of Networks Group for quite a long time. In a previous life, I was CIO of a mid-sized enterprise, and Networks Group was a great partner of mine for 8 years, basically being my security partner for my organization. In my role here at Networks Group, I lead our corporate operations and our defensive security businesses. And I've got over 20 years of experience in IT, leading mid-market with IT strategies. When I'm not working, I am an avid golfer, although playing for 20 years, I'm still not any good at it. You'd think with all that practice, I would figure it out, but it's just a difficult game to get right. and enjoy spending time with my family.
So I'll add that Michael and his family recently relocated to North Carolina, and his favorite hobby from my perspective is bragging about how the weather is so much better there.
So, that is true.
Thanks as always for that, Michael. So let me start with a little background about Networks Group and who we are. We're headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We were founded a little over 24 years ago to focus on helping customers solve security challenges. Our customers are companies that understand the importance of security and are resource constrained, be that people, time, money. And our services fall into 3 basic families, with compliance on the left and really a foundation for us. This doesn't make you secure, but we design all of our services to dovetail in with compliance, and it's a good foundation to start from. I'll mention that we are a PCI QSA company, so we can perform assessments against the payment card industry, and we also do work with a variety of different compliance frameworks. Moving left is defensive security. This is where we help our customers to design, deploy, operate, and defend secure networks. We do this across businesses big and small, across industries, technologies, and geographies. This gives us really broad visibility into the security challenges that customers are facing today. And then all the way to the left is offensive security. This is where we leverage the visibility we get from all the customer environments we manage, as well as a wealth of other threat intelligence to stay on top of the current tactics, techniques, and procedures that attackers are using today. We use those TTPs to run assessments against our customers to understand what they'd look like to a motivated attacker and help give a risk-informed view of how best to remediate and how best to step up and improve security for the environment.
All right, I'm going to go over the agenda for today. We're very excited to be unveiling NWGSecure today, as we see this as a great opportunity to help our customers, current and prospective, in understanding their maturity with their security program. In terms of how we're going to do that today, we're going to first talk a little bit about the challenges that we see our customers facing that we hope NWGSecure will help solve. We're going to do a brief introduction of what NWGSecure is, who the target audience is, who's going to benefit from going through this assessment process. We'll dive a little bit further into the domains that are contained within NWGSecure and talk about what we're looking at there, what the customer will receive as a deliverable, or what's the end result of this, what do I get out of it, and talk briefly about how you get started. So Dave, I'm going to hand it back over to you to talk a little bit about the challenges. What are we trying to solve here?
Great. Thanks, Michael. So one of my favorite things about my job is getting to talk to a lot of different companies across industries. And I've seen a big theme emerge from those customers is that in general, the folks I'm talking to care a lot about security, but don't know where to start. And they're caring about security because maybe somebody's telling them to care about security. That could be a governing organization like PCI, or a framework like NIST or HIPAA. It could be a big customer that is putting a vendor security assessment out to them, or it could be because people are seeing just the rapid proliferation of cybersecurity attacks these days, and they're seeing attacks in peer organizations, and they want to start to do things right. But you can't just toggle a switch and go from current state to perfect security. There's resource constraints across the board. It's hard to do. And it's tricky to get leadership buy-in because it's going to be, at best, one of the priorities of an organization, and it has to fit in with the other priorities of an organization. Quick story on just organizations thinking more about security. I had an opportunity just before the pandemic to speak at a HIMSS conference in that's an organization of healthcare CISOs and CIOs, and I had a room of about 14 CIOs that we were talking about security and trends and what to do about it. And I asked the question, how many of you are budgeting more for security next year than this year? 13 out of 14 hands went up. That sounds about right. It's never going to be 100%. But then I said, so what's the direction? What are you focusing on to improve your security? And I got 13 different answers from that organization, and nobody was confident in their answer. The theme that I took is, I'm spending more because I'm concerned about this, but I'm not really sure what to do, where I'm going to get the best benefit for the organization. And so it just sort of pins the underlying problem of organizations that are rightfully concerned about security and struggling with direction as to how to proceed and how to build good security for their organization.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that as well, sharing some experience as a former mid-size CIO. All of these bullets applied to me in that role. I ran a very lean IT team in my organization, and security was one of many things that we were responsible for in our organization. We cared. The information that we were dealing with day in and day out was important. It was sensitive. So we knew that we needed to protect it. We had requirements, obligations like PCI that were in play that we had to follow. But because we were a lean team, we didn't have the resources. We didn't have anybody on staff that was responsible for security. I was it. and we didn't have the knowledge necessary to really develop a program around security. And it's complicated, especially if you haven't been, if that isn't a primary responsibility for you. There's a lot of components, a lot of moving parts, and every organization is going to have a different look. So that were some of the challenges there. I lived and breathed as a CIO. Every single one of these was relevant.
So tell us about this NWGSecure, Michael.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do here with NWGSecure is demystify some of the stuff around security, helping our customers develop security programs, not security solutions, but programs, right? So looking at it holistically as a program for an organization that really ticks the boxes on all of the areas that are really important to build a mature security program for your organization. This assessment, what the goal of this assessment is to help you understand where you are on that journey and what are the next steps that you need to take to raise your level of maturity with security in your organization. The assessment itself is really focused on high level and practical strategies. So, there's a lot of security assessments out there, a lot of compliance around security, and they can be very detailed, they can be very nuanced, and challenging to assess your organization. This assessment is really focused at a higher level. What we're trying to understand is at a broad stroke level, where are you in your maturity journey with the components of your security program, and provide advice on where you need to focus your efforts. Going through the assessment process, we're going to look at your current state, build a baseline. This is where we are today in our organization on that journey, and provide focus and direction, prioritize roadmap on how you can influence your security program, how you can raise that maturity level, prioritizing things on impact, based on impact. If I do these things next year, I'm going to have the most significant impact on the security program of my organization. We at Networks Group, we're working with customers every day and recognize that there's a lot of components here, and there's a lot of dollars to be spent and time to be spent on developing mature security programs. You can't do it all at once, and the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So the NWGSecure assessment, the approach and the deliverable is to give you a roadmap that will take time. Let's focus on the things we can do short term, medium term, long term, to raise that level of maturity, so that it's more digestible and it's easier to accomplish. And another component of this is to measure your progress. So this is not a one-time assessment. Our goal is to have this as a part of continuing conversations with organizations, so that as they're making those investments in their security program, we're tracking the impact of those and tracking the overall maturity of the organization from a security perspective. So it's a lot. There's a lot there, but we think there's going to be a lot of value for organizations who choose to go down this path with us, to really understand where they're at and where they're going with their security program.
Great, thank you, Michael. So the audience, who is this designed for? It's organizations that care about security and have resource constraints, don't have all the answers to impact things right away. It's organizations that are looking to understand what their maturity is and close maturity and resource gaps. And you'll see that the domains we focus on are familiar to those that are experienced with NIST, PCI, and similar compliance frameworks. Where does it come from? It comes from many years of managing a wide variety of security networks and understanding the practicalities of good security. There's a lot of great ideas that are sprinkled around the various frameworks, and our philosophy with this is to pick the best of those, the things that are going to have the practical impact on improving your security. We also have worked with many customers and certainly submitted many of them ourselves, these vendor security assessments. Boy, with the trend of supply chain attacks, there's just so much more focus put on who are you doing business with. And so the kind of insights that we're seeing in those vendor security assessments are absolutely getting folded into this NWGSecure framework. And I reserved the right to do this earlier, but I see a question popped up that is kind of perfect timing for this, which is, what about cybersecurity insurance? Can this help with that? And that's another area that we are seeing lots of organizations needing help with, where we get questionnaires handed to us on a regular basis from our customers saying, do we do this? Should we do this? And the idea with building this more robust security program is that's going to help you with all of these different things. It's going to help you with doing good security, but it's going to help you with the security assessments that come out from third parties, including vendors and including cybersecurity insurance companies.
So what is NWGSecure? Well, it's an interview style assessment. We will sit down with your team, take about an hour to go through a series of questions in our top 10 domains. The questions themselves are non-technical when possible. Really, the idea here is to keep it at the conversation at a high level, ask just enough information to get a good understanding of your maturity in each specific domain. So an example I'll provide is multi-factor authentication. A question that will be asked in the assessment is, are you using multi-factor authentication? If the answer is yes, great. Let's dive a little bit deeper in that. How are you using multi-factor authentication? Are you using it for your perimeter? Are you using it for your cloud apps? Are you using it for internal administrative access to systems? Those are the kinds of questions that we'll ask during the assessment to understand where you are with that particular security solution. Because obviously, the more you have it implemented and the more you're using it, the higher your maturity in that particular area will be. But we want to be non-technical when possible. So we recommend, when we're going through the assessments, that we have the appropriate leadership involved, who's the one that's ultimately responsible for the security program in the organization, and maybe a senior technical person when possible as well, just to answer some of those technical questions when we do have to dive. But the total assessment takes about an hour, and we'll cover all the domains, which we're going to show here in the next slide, and ask questions about those. So these are the domains that are contained within NWGSecure. You'll notice that there are 10 of them. They're not in any particular order. We'll talk about why here in a little bit. But I do want to provide some brief commentary on what we have included in each of these domains, so you have kind of an understanding of what the assessment process looks like. So I'm going to start with access control right at the top there. In this domain, we're going to be assessing and asking questions about your identity management, your privilege. How do you grant permissions to things in your organization? We're also going to talk about or ask about remote access for individuals who are outside of your four walls of your environment. How do they get access to your data assets? And multi-factor authentication also goes in here as well. How are you securing those connections?
So let me take on the next one here, Michael, ethical hacking. So this domain is really about assessing your environment from the perspective of an attacker. What does a third party see when you look at your environment? And so we'll be talking here about penetration testing, including web application testing, and also looking at phishing simulations or personnel testing for your organization.
In our inventory and monitoring domain, one of the things that we like to say is, if you don't know what's on your network, how are you going to secure it? And so in this domain, we're going to assess how are you maintaining information about what is connected, what is in your environment, how are you maintaining inventory, how are you discovering assets in your environment, how are you monitoring those assets and their health, their status, how they're connected. Lifecycle management is another piece in this domain where we want to understand the equipment that you're using in your environment. How old is it? Is it still supportable? And other elements related to documentation. Detection and response. Here, what we want to look at, or what we'll be talking about in the assessment, is how are you detecting threats in your environment? How do you know if you've got something in your environment that has the potential to be exploited? Elements in this domain include vulnerability management. How are you tracking the available vulnerabilities and the patching status of those? How are you watching events? So all your devices in your environment are generating logs. How are you looking at those? How are you understanding the information within those logs? And protecting your endpoints. We all know that one of the most dangerous elements of securing an environment is your users. They tend to be the ones that can be an inflection point or an entry point into an environment for a bad guy. So we want to understand here how you're protecting the devices that they're using on a daily basis with endpoint protection. In the infrastructure domain, we're going to take a look at the other elements of your environment. What are you using from a firewall perspective? Are you securely segmenting your environment to prevent lateral movement across the environment? How are you making sure that devices are staying up to date with relevant patches? Email is another system that all of your users use. We already talked about them being the weakest link in your environment. How are you making sure that your email system is adequately protected? And same with mobile devices. We talked about endpoints earlier, but for those users who are using their mobile devices to access your assets, how are you protecting those?
So let's talk about incidents. It's really not a matter of if, but when a security incident is going to happen, and you need to be ready now. This involves documenting a plan, communicating, and testing that plan. Lots of organizations have a key person with a lot of this knowledge in their head, or they've run it as a small team, but not communicated widely enough in the organization. That almost guarantees that an incident will happen when that key leader is unreachable. So this is all about building a plan, testing that plan, and being ready before you're in crisis mode in the incident response domain here. In the compliance domain, this is an area where we'll look at frameworks such as PCI and HIPAA that you may be subject to, as well as the vendor risk assessments that we talked about earlier, and how you're prepared to respond in a compliance manner. And then moving on to the next domain here, personnel and culture. I've always said security is a team sport. It's key to build a coalition and have leadership buy-in for security. In the personnel and culture domain, we'll look at topics like security culture, password policies, user awareness training, and topics such as that.
And I'll take the last two, rounding out the top 10 here. Data management. In this domain, we're going to assess how you are protecting your data, how are you verifying its integrity, both at rest and in transit. We want to assess, basically here the integrity of the data, which is the asset here that everybody is accessing. We've talked about how you access it, but the data itself, how you're ensuring that the data keeps integrity. That's the focus of this domain. And then the last domain, everybody was already moving to the cloud before the pandemic. The pandemic only escalated that. And so in this domain, we want to understand in your environment, what is your cloud adoption? How are you utilizing cloud? And then most importantly, how are you securing your cloud assets? Oftentimes we'll hear somebody say, well, I'm using Google and Google spends $1 billion a year in security, so I'm good. Well, maybe not. Let's take a look at that and understand further about how you're ensuring that you're protecting your instances in Google.
And as you can see in looking at this diagram, there's no one thing that you can focus on to really build good security. It's the interplay of these things. And to your earlier point, Michael, about multi-factor authentication, that's a great example where you don't tend to have in most organizations, in practicality, we've found you don't tend to have a yes or a no answer. It's a how fully and how widely is this deployed. And that's what we're really finding is having the interplay of these different domains and understanding where strengths and weaknesses are. And when you look at the broader picture, it helps to provide direction as to where the low-hanging fruit is for things that can be focused on organizationally.
Yeah, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what you get out of this. What's the deliverable? So we've gone through the assessment process. We've answered all the questions. What do you get out of it? Well, the goal here, or the end result, is a report on your current security maturity. And we're going to look at that in multiple different ways. We're going to provide an overall security program maturity score. Then we're also going to provide scores on each of the domains and every element in each domain. So you have multi-level view of your program from a very high level perspective to a very detailed perspective. What that'll do is it will help drive a prioritized security roadmap to the point that Dave was just making. Multi-factor authentication is really, really important, but is it more important than something else? Well, it kind of depends on where you are on the maturity scale. So we're going to take all of the things that we learned through this assessment and develop that prioritized roadmap. Here are the areas where you're least secure or least mature in your program. And what we believe, what we recommend would be areas of focus first, second, and third to help increase that overall maturity within your program. We'll schedule a deliverable review meeting where we'll go over the results of that deliverable with you, answer any questions, and go talk about next steps. And then for customers of Networks Group who have recurring managed security services solutions with us, we're going to use this as a tool to assess those defensive security measures every year. Every year we'll go through this process again, look at what we've done in the year, how we've raised the level of maturity of your program, and what's next.
Great. So getting started is easy. You can schedule it right away. There's no charge for this assessment. We've set up a dedicated email address to reach out for scheduling. It's NWGSecure@networksgroup.com. I'll post that again at the end. For existing NWG managed customers, this will be scheduled as part of your ongoing reviews. But for other organizations that are really looking to better understand where you are and help build a program, just reach out, NWGSecure@networksgroup.com, and we'll get the process started for you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't circle back to the variety of services that Networks Group offers to help build a mature security program. As a reminder, these range from compliance assessments to designing, deploying, operating, and monitoring secure networks, to assessing security through ethical hacking services, to really help you understand your risk so that you can make informed decisions. We're getting to holiday season. We're going to pick up our monthly webinars in January, and we will start stepping through the various domains in the NWGSecure framework and picking them off one at a time and getting into deeper detail on those. You can follow us on LinkedIn at Networks Group or watch networksgroup.com for updates and schedule for those. Contact information here as a reminder, NWGSecure at networksgroup.com, or you can reach out at the phone number listed, and we'd be happy to schedule further discussion, next steps with you. As a reminder, there is a Q&A panel on your screen. If you've got specific questions that you'd like asked, we're happy to address that now. If you have follow-on questions, of course, you can use that NWGSecure email alias, and we will get answers to you right away. So let's take a look and see if we have anything new here. Okay, so why would we use NWGSecure framework and not one of the standards?
Great question.
It is. We've talked a lot about that. I'll give my take, and Michael, feel free to add anything on there. We think a lot about PCI as an organization. We do a whole lot of assessments in that space, and one of the examples in there is PCI has very prescriptive requirements around password security. They look at requiring a 7-character password with complexity, and that's in the 3.2.1, the current standard. So our take is, well, that's a really good idea to have prescriptive requirements around password security, but the level at which they prescribe that is really outdated. You can be compliant by meeting or exceeding that, but you aren't going to have security at that level. So we're taking the lessons from these frameworks and the lessons from the whole variety of infrastructures that we're responsible for managing and applying good security to that. Anything, Michael, you want to add there?
Yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a different take on that. And just speaking from experience here as a former CIO, if you're in a position where your security program is very immature today, current state, going to try to be NIST, go do a NIST framework and implement in your organization, that's a really difficult undertaking. That's a big ask. And so what I see NWGSecure is for organizations who are not in that mature security program current state, this is kind of an opportunity to get going, get somewhere, go from 0 to 80. And then once you're at 80, then you can start looking at NIST, and it becomes a much easier and more digestible thing to pull off. This is not designed to replace those frameworks. If you have a requirement to be PCI or to be HIPAA, you're going to have to do those things as well. But the idea here is NWGSecure to really help get started, get your program from an immature state to some level of maturity, so that you can take on more of the advanced elements in the future. So it's a different take, but I agree with you too, Dave, that this can be complementary to those as well. Because we're taking elements of all of them and implementing them here in NWGSecure.
Great, thanks, Michael. Next is, does NWG have products and services in each of these areas? Yeah, let me take a swing at that. We do in a lot of the areas. There's direct product and service offerings in many of the areas, but we're also not trying to be an expert on everything. We're trying to provide guidance as to what we think is good security, and there are areas of that we help our clients fill those gaps through partnerships. So we have a network of partnerships that can bring competency in areas where it just doesn't make sense for us to staff out on that now. But just because it's not part of the line card from Networks Group doesn't mean it's not important for security. And so we want to help paint the big picture for our customers. Many of them are things that we have direct capability. Some of these components are through partnerships, and we'll be, transparent with you as we go on that. Anybody has any more questions, go ahead and add them in. I've got one last one here. Michael, I'm going to hand this to you. How fast should we expect to move through this?
It's designed to be a relatively painless process from the customer's perspective. It's a 2-hour commit. It's about an hour for the actual assessment, sitting down and answering the questions. And then about an hour to go through the results, the deliverable that we'll provide. Obviously, that can go up or down depending on to what level of detail we get in the conversation. Most of the effort in this is actually on our behalf, where we take the answers to these questions and grade them on the maturity scale that we've developed to put that deliverable report together. That being said, this can be done relatively quickly. We could probably turn this around in a week or two from start to finish, given that the level of effort there, and the level of effort on the customer's behalf is relatively small.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we've hit the end of our questions. I just want to wrap up by thanking everybody for taking a chunk out of your day to hear what we have to say. I know everybody is very busy right now. We value your time and appreciate it. This webinar has been recorded. This will be published on LinkedIn. It will be published on our website. If you want to go back and catch any parts of it, if you've got additional questions, reach out NWGSecure@networksgroup.com. If you have ideas for future sessions that you'd like to see or other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is dhoward, DHOWARD, @networksgroup.com. And if I can't answer it directly, I'm happy to get you pointed to the right resource. Like I said, we'll start the webinar process back up in January after the first of the year. We'll start advertising that shortly on our website and on networksgroup.com. Until then, thanks everybody for your time, and we'll speak with you soon.
Thank you.